In this video, we will be completing the arrow bracket drawing. If we take a look at the original drawing, we want to first identify the overall height and width of this object. The overall height is 4 1/2 inches, and the overall width is 7 1/2 inches. On my paper, I'm going to first identify my 7 1/2 inches measurement and connect those reference points together. The height is 4 1/2 inches. And that will give me my reference box for drawing this object. Everything I draw for this object will need to fit inside of that box, touching the edges. Going back to my original drawing, I'm first going to work on the corners. I can see that I have a 1 1/8 inch measurement from the top of my drawing. This will help me place a reference point for one side of this slanted line. I also have a 2-inch measurement from the right side of my object. This will help me place the other reference point. 2 inches across the top, 1 1/8 inch going down from the top. I can connect those two dots or reference points together and then complete that same procedure for each additional corner of my drawing. 1 1/8 from the edge, and we have 2 inches from the side. Connect those points together and continue on to the next one. Now that all 4 corners are drawn, I can move back to my original drawing, and I notice that there are some center lines. I also have an object in the center of my drawing. So before I get too far, I'm going to add in these center marks to help me place the various other objects within my drawing. Given that my drawing is 4 1/2 inches tall, I need to go halfway at 2 1/4. To give me one center line. The width of my object is 7 1/2, so I also need to go halfway, which is 3 3/4. And this is now going to help me place these other components of my drawing. Let's do these notched out portions next. I can see that there is a 1-inch opening, which means it is a 1/2 inch away from the center line, going both directions. And this notched out portion goes in 1 1/2 inches. So on my drawing, I'm going to go up a 1/2 inch, down a 1/2 inch, up a 1/2 inch, down 1/2 inch, and that's going to help me place some construction lines. My depth that this goes in is 1.5 inches on either side. And I can now move on towards the center of my object. I have a 2 1/8 inch square. I do know that my lines are going at a 45-degree angle, but it is not as straightforward as just drawing it on there. If I attempt to just place the ruler and line up my 2 1/8 inch marks, there's no guarantee that I'm exactly 45 degrees with my center marks. I do know, looking at my original drawing, that each side is 2 1/8 inches, which also means that if I bisect the line, that bisecting line will also be 2 1/8 inches. So essentially, if I create an X that is 2 1/8 inches, that's going to give me some reference points to help me draw this shape. To do this, I'm going to be using a 45-45-90 triangle. I'm going to position my triangle along the bottom edge of my paper, but I'm also going to position it so it is running through that center point. I'll place some reference lines . And knowing that each side of the square is 2 1/8, I can go 1 1/16 on each side of this reference line. So if I set my ruler to 1 1/16, I can get a reference point. If I go an additional 1 1/16, I get another reference point. And if I continue that process, 1 1/16, I get 4 reference points. I can then take my triangle, line it up with the edge of my paper, and draw some reference lines that cross through those reference points. And the last thing to do is darken in the object lines so we can differentiate those from our construction lines and our center lines. And at this point, we have finished the arrow bracket drawing.